So hello and welcome to Sacrea Cooking, where you learn to cook with creativity and confidence. And today we have the video number 2 of our Spelt Sourdough bread series. So today I want to show you what influence water has and what influence the type of flour you use has on the dough itself, on the finished product, and so on. So I made 4 doughs. And I used 2 doughs with white spelt flour, one with 65% hydration, one with 85%. So one quite low hydration and one quite high. And then I made 2 whole grain, 100% whole grain ones, where I do the same 65% and 85% hydration. And I show you the difference on how it looks when you put it together, when you stretch and fold it, how it looks after it has been fermenting in the fridge, how it rises. And then for the health aspect, I would say that whole grain is best, obviously, so as much whole grain as possible with still a nice bread result that you like would be perfect for both your health and so you can eat a bread that you really love. And yeah, now we come to the recipe. So, and now we'll start with the first dough. So this is the one that I'm using right now, is 250 grams of white spelt, and this will be the high hydration dough. So I will add 85% of this 250 grams in water. Yes, there I'm calculating, it's quite easy if you just multiply times 0. Whatever percentage you want. Yes, and then I'm mixing it all together. This one I would say was not the wettest dough, but one of the wettest one. It was the stickiest for sure. It was sticking to my hand quite quickly, quite a lot. It was very gluey, almost like when you make a dough with starch only, like with potato starch or cornstarch. And now I'm making the second one. It's the same amount of flour, also white spelt, and there I add 65% of water. And this one was again kind of sticky, also the same kind of feeling of starch, but yeah, it was much more dry obviously. And it also took me substantially longer to mix this one together, so the high hydration ones, both of them were much quicker coming together. Yes, and you can see I can even take it in my hand already, which usually you cannot do at this stage if you have higher hydration. And then I'm starting with the whole grain spelt, which you can already see in the flour looks very different. And yeah, again, this one is 85% water. So, and then mixing this one together. This one ended up being very wet. I wouldn't say like a pancake dough, but it came closer to that. It's quite a lot of water. On top of that, whole grain flour really already has more moisture in it than white flour, so you can really see the difference here. And then I'm doing the same with 65% water. Here I have to say it turned out quite dry. I think it's also because I used a wooden bowl. That one probably took some of the water as well, so I would not recommend that, but I was running out of bowls for this experiment, so yeah, better use glass or metal. And this one took quite some time to incorporate all of the flour into the dough. Yes, and I'm letting all of those rest for 1 hour so they can ferment by themselves before I add in my sourdough starter. And then you can see after 1 hour the dough already changed dramatically. You can see the gluten formed and it has much more stretchability. I would say this one was the stretchiest dough, not the wettest, but the stretchiest. Now adding my sourdough starter, I added like 1/4 of the amount that I had, which was probably around 40 grams each, which I would say is not enough. It's better to add around maybe 60 to 100 grams, depending on the size of the dough. I mean, my dough was quite small, but still, I should have added probably more, around 60. And then I'm doing a quick stretch and fold, and it looks really good. And then I look at the second one with the low hydration. This one is harder. It has developed gluten, but it's still not as stretchable as the high hydration one, and you will see it will be harder to incorporate the starter and the salt. The wettest dough, you can see, yes, there has been gluten development, but it's so wet that it doesn't stick together at all. Generally, the whole grain doesn't develop gluten as quickly as the white one, and not as much. And also, like the wetter the dough, the wetter it gets, and the drier the dough, the drier it gets. So it's on both extremes. The dough ends up being like more extreme than the one with the white flour. Yeah, this dough was still. It almost didn't change in this 1 hour. I have to say it got a little bit softer, yes, but usually 1 hour in the beginning it changes a lot, and this time it didn't. And then I was spreading it out a bit so it's easier to incorporate the starter and the salt, and yeah. Generally, the lower hydration doughs need a bit more muscle strength. And then you can see after rest it looks really beautiful. Like this one is very easy to work with, even if it was quite sticky in the beginning, but now even that is okay. If it's too sticky, if you have a high hydration dough and it's very, very sticky, it helps to just wet your hands in some water before you work with it. Yeah, then we have the low hydration white spelt. This one is also quite okay to do a stretch and fold. It just kept sticking to the bowl a lot. This one you can see it's already fermenting very nice. And again, I don't really have dough structure in this one yet. It doesn't hold together the way the white flours did. It would probably do that better with like a medium hydration, like 75%. I would say generally for, if you do 100% whole grain, it's probably best to be in the medium range of 75% hydration, to not have a really hard or a really wet dough. With white flour, it's you can experiment more. I would say it's easier to experiment there. Then I did my last stretch and fold. This one looks really nice. It doesn't have a lot of hold, but it stays together really well. And then I added it into the pan where I will bake it the day after, and then I put it in the fridge. And then this one again, it looks nice. It's again sticking to the bowl, but overall it looks like it's easy to handle. Somehow stickier than the wet dough. And again I will put this one in its respective tin. And the wet one, it had a bit more dough structure, but still not as much as I would hope for. This one, it was rising a bit, but it still did not change so much in comparison to before, so I'm just kind of rolling it in shape a little bit. So then I put all of this into the fridge overnight. And then in the next morning I let them rise a little bit in the warmth of the room for around an hour, 1.5 hours. And now I'm squashing all of the... Here it's, you can see it's very hard, it's too wet to really get the blade in. And on the low hydration white spelt one there, it worked really well. Wet dough, whole grain, again it did not really do so much, and I don't think it came out in the end. And the dry one, it worked again, and it also came out like this. And then for some reason I decided to add a nose, and then I added a smiley. Yeah, and then I put them in the oven for 20 minutes first with water, and then for 40 minutes without. Here I have water on the bottom, and then here I took it out. And then this is how they're looking. Yes, there we have the different doughs. They all have a nice crust, though very different. Cutting them open for you so you can see the inside. So first we have the high hydration white spelt flour. It did not get an open crumb. I think it would have needed a bit more starter and yeah, maybe some more time out of the fridge too. And in the middle it's nice and fermented, nice bubbles and soft, and the outside is crunchy. It was very delicious. From all of them I would say that this one was my favorite, taste-wise. And this is the low hydration one. I would say this one did not come out that different. You can feel it different in the crumb, and you can feel it different in the cutting and when you eat it, but it's not a big difference in terms of softness. It's still similarly soft, it's similarly fermented, so yeah. Here in the whole grain flour, there the hydration made a much bigger difference. You can see it. Generally, you can see that the difference between the crust and the inside is not so strong. This was the high hydration one. It is very nice, very soft inside and crunchy on the outside. This one was very crunchy on the outside. The low hydration one was a little bit hard to cut. Very rustic flavor, I really liked it. But yeah, this one was a bit drier inside. Not dry, but drier. Here you can see the 4 loaves, and then I also made a little overview of the different loaves, what kind of things came out, so you can also download that. The link is in the description, so you can see what you would prefer, what kind of things you look out for, and if you want to see what kind of difference water and the type of flour can make in a bread. And that was it for the recipe, and you saw the different loaves, and I have to say they all didn't rise as much. When I do this experiment again, but I would use more starter, because I think overall the amount of starter for each bread was a little bit on the low end, and I would probably introduce another stretch and fold, especially for the drier doughs. On top of that, I will make a bigger bread, so the bread has the opportunity to rise with the sides of the bread tin and not just by itself. Having a bread rise just by itself, the way you sometimes see with wheat sourdough, it's possible with spelt, but it's much more complicated, and I personally haven't mastered that, so for me it works much better with a tin, like a bread tin. And yeah, those are the things I would adjust and that I will adjust. And yeah, those are the outcomes of the experiment, and I hope you like it, and I hope you have a better overview what you want to go for yourself, and bye bye!